Another advantage of property is that you get rental income, and also that will go up with inflation and average earnings every year on average. Now, I know interest rates, your mortgage interest does fluctuate. You have periods of high interest rates, periods of low interest rates, but the interest is always applied to your the principal amount of your mortgage, which is fixed in money terms. So over time, the rent will just go up every year with inflation. So the difference between your rental income and your mortgage interest will, on average, increase every year, which gives you more cash return every month, which is great, and because you can live off that money, and also it gives you a better cash buffer in case things go wrong, e.g. if interest rates go up or something. Another advantage of property is that you can periodically draw down equity. If you're on a fixed term mortgage for, say, 2 years, and then that comes to an end, so you can remortgage again, you can phone up your broker and say, oh well, property prices have gone up this much, rental income's gone up this much, how much can I borrow then? And then he'll crunch the numbers, and he might say, oh well, you can borrow an extra 30,000, 100,000, whatever, so depending on the market and how big your property is, and then you can draw down that money, and you can even use that to invest in new properties, which will really accelerate your growth. And there's no tax on that because you're not actually selling anything. There's no capital gains tax. All you're doing is drawing down equity, refinancing. Now, you've got to be slightly careful where you do this, because you can just go crazy with it, drawing down lots of money all the time, spending it, and living an incredibly lavish lifestyle. And then, supposing there's a property crash, and then you can't refinance anymore, and then you have to sell, but you've borrowed so much money, and then at that point you will have capital gains tax. So you can end up in a bit of a mess if you go a bit too crazy with this. So you have to be a bit careful, but as long as you do it prudently, and you work out what you have lots of cash buffers in place, and you're only borrowing at, say, 75% loan to value, there should be enough safety in doing this, but it depends on your exact situation. But it is a big advantage of property, especially if in a rising market. Also, property is, if you do it in a certain way, it can be very passive. If you use good quality agents and you use single lets, it doesn't really take much management. You just, every now and then they might phone you up and say, oh well, there's this problem that needs fixing, is that okay? And you say okay, and then they sort it out and deduct it from the amount they pay you, and every year you just have to do your taxes, and there's not really very much you have to get involved with, apart from sometimes sort of deciding with the agent which is the new tenant to go into your property. It's also relatively liquid. You can't sell a property straight away, but you can always, if you want to sell a property, just phone up a estate agent, and you don't have to live there. They can all do it. You can do it all remotely by phone. I've done that many times. I've even done it when I've lived in other countries and so on. So it's quite easy to sell, especially if you sell